The bridge of the human ship. Resolute was loud with noise and fear. Red lights flashed across the dark room. The low sound of a warning alarm played over and over. On the giant screen at the front of the bridge, a terrible scene played out. The planet below them, a green world called Viridia, was now covered in black smoke and orange fire. The stars were hidden behind a moving, shifting cloud of enemy ships. This was the Ravager swarm. They were a race that lived only to take things. They ate worlds and left nothing behind. Captain Mira stood in the middle of the chaos. She was the leader of the ship. Her face was pale and tight with tiredness. She had not slept for 2 days. Her hands were pressed flat on her command console to stop them from shaking. "Give me a new report," she said. Her voice was rough and dry. A young man at the communications panel named Jin shook his head. He was staring at the bad news on his screen. "It is over, Captain. The 4th Fleet is gone. The 5th Fleet. Their signals have stopped. Our own shields are almost broken. The ship is losing air on the lower decks." He finally looked up at her. His eyes were wide with fear. "The Ravagers are pushing our last ships into a trap. There is no way for us to escape." Then a new voice came over the ship's speaker. It was the chief engineer, a man named Tay. His voice was sharp and full of static. "Captain, the main engine is being pushed too hard. It is getting too hot. We have minutes left before it breaks. If you have a plan, you must do it now." Mira closed her eyes for a second. She felt the weight of every person on her ship. She felt the weight of everyone on the planet below. The Galactic Coalition, the group of friendly alien races, had promised to help. But no help had come. Their allies were either destroyed or too scared to fight. The Resolute and the few ships left with it were the only thing between the Ravagers and the end of Viridia. She opened her eyes. There was only one choice left. It was a terrible choice, a choice no captain should ever have to make. "Jin," she said, her voice suddenly clear and strong. "Open the file for Project Chimera. My code is Mira 79er Zulu." The noise on the bridge seemed to get quieter. A few of the officers turned to look at her, their faces full of shock. Jin's mouth fell open. "Captain." "Project Chimera? But that is just a story to scare new soldiers. The science is not real. The energy needed? It would use all the power we have left. It would kill our engines. If we do nothing, the Ravagers will kill us anyway," Mira said, not looking away from him. "This is our only chance. Do it. Open a hole in space to the numbers in that file. Send the call signal on the special frequency." Jin's fingers flew over his panel. His heart was beating very fast. He had read about Project Chimera in his training. It was not a weapon. It was a call for help. But it was a call to the one species that every other race in the galaxy was afraid of. They were not part of the coalition. They were alone. They were violent. The stories about them were the oldest and most frightening stories in space. No one knew what they looked like. No one knew their real name. They were only called the humans. Long ago, before the Galactic Coalition was formed, humans had tried to explore the stars. They were not peaceful explorers. They were fighters. They found other races, and instead of talking, they fought them. They were clever and tough and ruthless. They did not seem to feel fear like other species. They won every war they started. Finally, the other major races had to join together to stop them. They pushed the humans back to their own small part of space. They built a great barrier to lock them in. A warning was given to all. Never disturb the humans. Never go into their space. Never speak their name, and now Captain Mira was calling them. "The signal is sent." "Captain," Jin said, his voice a whisper. On the engineering deck, deep inside the ship, Tay saw the power levels drop suddenly. Every light on his console turned red. The low hum of the engine became a sick, groaning sound. "She is doing it," Tay said to his assistant. "She is using all our power for this crazy plan. We are sitting ducks now." He felt a cold anger. They could have tried to run. They could have fought to the end with honor, but this was inviting a monster to fight another monster. On the main view screen, a point of space in front of the human fleet began to twist and tear. It was like a hole was being ripped in the fabric of the universe. The space inside the hole was not black, but a violent swirling purple. Lightning made of pure energy crackled around its edges. The Ravager swarm, which had been moving in for the final attack, stopped. Their ships, which looked like giant metal insects, seemed to hesitate. They could feel the strange energy from the hole. It was a kind of power they had never felt before. Then a ship came through the hole. It was not like a Ravager ship. It was not like any coalition ship either. It was not smooth or beautiful. It was all sharp corners and flat surfaces. It was painted a dull dark black that did not reflect any light. It looked heavy and solid, like a piece of a mountain floating in space. It was not very big, maybe the size of the Resolute. It made no sound. It sent no message. It just sat there in the silence. Jin checked his panel. I am not reading any energy weapons. Their shields are down. They are just there. His hope, which had been a small flicker, began to die. This is it? One quiet ship? We doomed ourselves for this. The Ravagers seemed to decide this new thing was not a threat. Their swarm began to move again, ignoring the black ship and heading straight for the helpless Resolute. But just as the lead Ravager ship got close, the black ship moved. It was so fast it was hard to see. It turned and a single bright red beam of light shot from its front. The beam did not hit the main body of the Ravager ship. It hit one of its long, sharp weapon arms and sliced it clean off. The move was not wild or angry. It was calm and precise, like a doctor cutting away a sick part. Then, the black ship went silent again. The whole Ravager swarm stopped moving completely. For a moment, there was perfect quiet in space. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then every single Ravager ship turned away from the Resolute. They turned their weapons toward the small black silent ship. The battle for Viridia was not over. But now it had a new player. The silence on the bridge of the Resolute was heavy and deep. It was louder than the alarms had been. Every person stared at the main screen. They watched the small black ship. It floated alone in the dark space. Around it, the entire Ravager swarm was turning. Hundreds of enemy ships were now pointing their weapons at this one new target. The humans on the Resolute were completely forgotten. Jin was the first to speak. His voice was a dry whisper. They are all looking at it. Captain Mira did not answer. Her eyes were fixed on the black ship. She had hoped for a miracle. She had hoped for a powerful fleet to come and save them. But only one ship had come. One quiet, dark ship. She felt a cold sickness in her stomach. She had used the last of her ship's power to call for help. And she had called forth this one ship to its death. The Ravagers did not wait. A storm of green energy erupted from their swarm. Dozens of beams of destructive light shot toward the black ship. They moved so fast they looked like solid lines of poison green. They hit the black ship all at once. The space around it exploded in a blinding flash of light. Mira had to look away from the brightness. She knew what she would see when the light faded. She would see pieces of the black ship floating in space. She had killed them. She had brought them here to die. But when the light faded, the black ship was still there. It was completely untouched. A soft red glow surrounded it now. The glow looked like a faint shimmering bubble. The Ravagers' powerful weapons had not even scratched the surface. On the engineering deck, Tay stared at his instruments. His mouth was open. He could not believe what he was seeing. That is not possible, he said to the empty air. They're shields. They are not normal. He looked at the numbers again. When the Ravager weapons hit, the human ship's power levels went up. Their shields are not just blocking the attack. They are eating the energy. They are using the enemy's power to make themselves stronger. Back on the bridge, the crew watched in stunned silence. The black ship began to move. It did not try to run. It did not try to hide. It moved slowly and calmly forward, directly into the heart of the Ravager swarm. It was like watching a wolf walk into a flock of sheep. The black ship fired its weapons again. This time it was not one single beam. It was many. Red lines of light reached out from the black ship. Each line found a target. Each target was a Ravager ship. The beams did not just blow up the ships. They cut them into perfect, neat pieces. It was fast and clean and horrible. Another type of weapon fired. A ball of dark energy shot out from the black ship. It hit a group of 5 Ravager fighters. The ball seemed to suck all the light into it. The Ravager ships were pulled toward the center of the ball. They were crushed together into a single, small ball of twisted metal. Then the dark energy disappeared, and the ball of scrap floated away. The black ship was a perfect machine of war. It did not waste a single movement. It did not fire a single shot that missed. It was methodical. It was calm. It was the most frightening thing any of them had ever seen. Jin was busy at his panel. Captain, I am trying to send them a message. I am saying thank you. I am asking who they are. He listened to his headphones. There is no answer, nothing. It is like there is no one inside. It is just a machine. Mira watched the destruction on the screen. They are answering, Jin, she said quietly. This is their answer. This is how they talk. The Ravagers were not stupid. They were a hive mind. They could learn. They saw that their energy weapons were making the black ship stronger. So they changed their tactics. They stopped firing their beams. Instead, they began to fly their ships directly at the black ship. They would ram it. They would break it with physical force. A large Ravager cruiser shaped like a giant hornet flew at high speed toward the black ship. It was going to crash right into it. The black ship did not move away. At the last second, a new weapon came out from its side. It was a long, sharp spear made of a strange white metal. The spear shot forward and pierced the front of the Ravager cruiser. The cruiser's own speed did the rest. It impaled itself on the spear, sliding down its length until it hit the hull of the black ship with a silent, terrible crash. Then the black ship shook the dead cruiser off, letting it float away into the darkness. It was a brutal and simple way to fight. It sent a clear message. The Ravagers learned another lesson. They pulled back. The swarm moved away from the black ship, creating an empty circle of space around it. The two forces looked at each other. The humans on the Resolute held their breath. What would happen now? Then a new shape came from the Ravager swarm. It was a different kind of ship. It was bigger and slower. It had a large, round opening on its front. It began to glow with a deep red light. It is a Ravager world ender, Jin said, his voice shaking. They use it to break planets. They are going to fire it at the human ship. The round opening on the big ship glowed brighter and brighter. It was building up a huge amount of power. The black ship finally moved. It turned its side toward the big Ravager ship. A part of its hull slid open. A long, heavy cannon came out. The cannon did not glow red or green. It glowed a hot, angry white. It was the color of a star. The Ravager world ender fired. A massive beam of red energy, as thick as a small moon, shot across space. It was meant to destroy everything in its path. At the same time, the black ship fired its white cannon. The two beams met in the middle of space. For a moment, they pushed against each other. The red light and the white light fought. But the white light was stronger. It was much stronger. It pushed back against the red beam. It moved back along the path of the red beam, all the way to the big Ravager ship. The white light touched the Ravager ship. There was no explosion. The Ravager ship simply came apart. It dissolved into tiny particles of dust. The white light kept going, through the ship and into the swarm behind it, destroying everything it touched. Then it was gone. The bridge of the Resolute was completely silent. No one could speak. They had just seen a weapon that could erase a ship from existence. The black ship pulled its white cannon back inside. The hull closed. It became a simple black shape again. It turned slowly in space. For the first time, its front was facing the Resolute. The humans on the bridge could feel its attention on them. It was looking at them. It had finished with the Ravagers for now. And now it was looking at the people who had called it here. The black ship hung in the void, its dark surface still and silent. The Ravager swarm, which had been a terrifying cloud of destruction, was now broken and scattered. The remaining ships pulled back, regrouping at a safe distance. They were no longer the hunters. They had become the prey, and the black ship was the predator that had turned the tables. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew did not cheer. They did not feel relief. They felt a new kind of fear. It was a cold, slow fear. They had been saved from a fire, but now they were standing on a frozen lake, hearing the ice crack beneath their feet. The black ship was looking at them. Everyone on the bridge could feel it. Its attention was a physical weight. Jin's hands trembled over his communication panel. "I am still sending greetings. Standard peace messages. First contact protocols. There is no answer. Nothing." He listened intently to his headset, hoping for any whisper of a signal. It is like talking to a rock. Captain Mira kept her eyes on the screen. The black ship was so still. It was not making any moves. It was just watching. "Stop sending messages, Jin," she said quietly. Jin looked up, confused. "But Captain, we have to talk to them. We have to thank them. We have to be quiet," Mira interrupted, her voice firm but low. "We do not know what they want. We do not know why they are here. Every time we have tried to talk, they have ignored us. Their actions are their language. Right now, their action is silence. We should not fill that silence with our own noise. It might be the wrong kind of noise. Down in engineering, Tay was watching his own set of screens. He was not looking at the black ship's weapons or its shields. He was looking at its energy signature. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was clean and incredibly powerful. It was also changing, Captain. Tay's voice came over the comm, hushed and urgent. Their power output is fluctuating. It is not a system failure. It is a pattern. It is like it is scanning us. Scanning for what? Mira asked. For everything, Tay replied. It is reading our hull composition, our reactor type, the materials in our wiring. It is mapping our entire ship, down to the last bolt. And it is scanning for life signs. It is counting us. A chill went through the bridge. They were being studied like a bug under a glass. Then a new signal appeared on Jin's panel. It was not a message. It was not words. It was a raw, uncompressed stream of data. It was so sudden and so powerful that it made his console flicker. I am getting something, Jin said, his heart leaping into his throat. It is a data packet. A huge one. It is not in any language I know. He worked quickly to process it. The computer struggled to decode the information. The main view screen flickered. The image of the black ship was replaced by a fast-moving stream of symbols, numbers, and strange angular diagrams. It was too fast for a human to read. What is it? Mira asked, stepping closer to the screen. I do not know, Jin said, his fingers flying. The computer is trying to analyze it. It is not a friendly greeting. It is not a history lesson. It looks like technical readouts. Tay's voice came back, filled with a new kind of awe. Captain, I am seeing it too on my end. This is incredible. These are schematics. These are the engineering principles for their power core, or at least a part of it. They are giving us their technology? Mira asked, completely bewildered. No, Tay said, his excitement fading into grim understanding. No, they are not giving it to us. They are showing it to us. They are showing us the gap. Look at this energy conversion rate. It is 1,000 times more efficient than ours. They are not sharing secrets. They are showing us their strength. They are saying, look what we can do. You could never understand this. It is a display of power, an intellectual one. The data stream stopped. The screen went back to showing the black ship. It was still silent. It was still watching. The Ravagers chose that moment to make their move. They had not run away. They had been waiting. They had formed a new plan. While the black ship was focused on the Resolute, the Ravagers had surrounded them. Dozens of smaller, faster ships shot forward. They were not aiming for the black ship. They were aiming for the Resolute. They had understood the silence between the two human ships. They had seen the black ship studying the Resolute. They thought the Resolute was weak. They thought it was the black ship's pet. If they could not hurt the Predator, they would hurt what the Predator was looking at. A wave of Ravager fighters sped toward the Resolute, their weapons glowing green. Evasive action, Mira yelled, grabbing her console. But she knew it was useless. Their engines were still dead. Their shields were gone. They were a floating target. Jin braced for the impact, but the impact never came. The black ship moved faster than thought. It did not turn. It did not aim. From all over its hull, small ports opened. From these ports, a cloud of small metallic objects shot out. They were like a swarm of angry bees. Each one was about the size of a person. They flew on tiny thrusters. This was the black ship's swarm. The small objects flew directly into the path of the Ravager fighters. They did not shoot them. They attached themselves to the Ravager ships. They stuck to the hulls like metal bugs. Then they detonated. The explosions were small and precise. Each one took out an engine or a weapon or the front window of a fighter. The Ravager attack was destroyed in seconds, turned into a field of silent, dead metal. The cloud of small objects then turned around and flew back to the black ship, disappearing into the ports they had come from. The black ship had not even moved from its spot. It had protected the Resolute, but it had not done it out of kindness. It was the protection a farmer gives to his livestock. He protects them from wolves so that he can decide their fate himself. The message was received. The Ravager swarm, seeing this, finally began to retreat. They were not just leaving the battle. They were fleeing. They had encountered a power they could not fight, could not understand, and could not escape. They were running for their lives. The battle was over. The Resolute was saved. The planet Viridia was safe. But on the bridge, no one celebrated. The Ravagers were gone, but the black ship remained. It was still there. It was still looking at them. It had dealt with the nuisance. Now it was time to deal with the reason it had been called. The last of the Ravager ships twisted in space and shot away into the darkness. They were moving faster than they had when they attacked. They were not just leaving. They were running away. The space around the planet Viridia was suddenly quiet. It was filled only with the floating pieces of broken Ravager ships. The battle was over. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew watched the Ravagers flee. They should have felt happy. They should have felt safe, but they did not. The black ship was still there. It had not moved. It was a silent, dark shape against the stars. It was more frightening than the entire Ravager swarm. Captain Mira stood very still. She looked at the black ship on the main screen. It had saved them, but why? What did it want now? The stories about these humans were all about violence and taking things. They did not help others. So why were they still here? Jin broke the silence. His voice was shaky. The Ravagers are gone. Their signals are getting farther away. They are not coming back. He looked at his captain. What do we do now? Mira did not have an answer. She looked at the communication panel. Have they sent anything else? Any message at all? Nothing, Jin said. No signals. No data streams. Just silence. Then a new voice came from the speaker. It was Tay, the engineer. He sounded tired and worried. Captain, our main reactor is cooling down. I can try to restart some of our systems. We might be able to get minimal power back, but it will take time. And we are still sitting right in front of them. Mira knew he was right. They were helpless. Their weapons were gone. Their shields were gone. Their engines were dead. They were like a small animal lying in front of a lion. The lion had chased away the hyenas. Now it was time for the lion to eat. Start the reactor, Tay, Mira said. Do it slowly. Do not make any sudden power surges. We do not want to look like a threat. On the main screen, the black ship finally moved. It did not move fast. It turned slowly like a great whale turning in the deep ocean. It began to move toward the Resolute. It was not a rush. It was a slow, steady approach. This was even more terrifying than a fast attack. It was calm and sure. Every person on the bridge held their breath. The black ship grew larger on the screen. It was coming very close. It is matching our orbit, Jin said, his hands frozen over his panel. It is moving to a position 500 meters off our port side. 500 meters was nothing in space. It was the distance between two houses on a street. They could almost see the details on its dark hull. The black ship stopped. It was now sitting right beside them. It was so close. The Resolute looked small and weak next to it. The black ship was not much bigger, but it felt massive. It felt heavy with power. Then a light appeared on the black ship. A single small door opened on its side. There was no light inside the door. It was just a black rectangle. A moment later, a small object flew out of the door. It was a simple, metallic pod. It was about the size of a small car. It had no visible engines, but it moved smoothly through space toward the Resolute. It is heading for our main airlock on Deck 3, Jin said, his voice tight with fear. What is it? Mira asked. I do not know. It is not a weapon. Its energy signature is very low. It is like a shuttle. A small transport, Mira understood. They were being boarded. The humans from the black ship were coming onto the Resolute. Her mind raced. What should she do? Should she try to stop them? They had no way to stop them. Should she open the airlock? Would that be surrendering? She made a decision. They could not fight. Their only chance was to show they were not a threat. Maybe they could talk. Jin, tell the crew on Deck 3 to stand down. Do not point any tools at the airlock. Do not make any fast moves. Tell them to move away from the door. She turned to her second in command. You have the bridge. I am going down there. Captain, no, Jin said. It is too dangerous. Let me go. No, Mira said, her voice firm. I am the captain. I called them here. This is my responsibility. She walked toward the elevator. Her legs felt weak, but she did not let it show. She rode the elevator down to Deck 3. The hallway outside the main airlock was empty. The crew had followed her orders. She stood alone in the quiet hallway. She could hear the faint sounds of the ship. Then she heard a new sound, a heavy clang against the outer hull. The humans were here. The status light above the airlock turned from red to green. The outer door was open. There was a hiss of equalizing pressure. Then the inner door began to slide open. Mira stood straight, trying to look calm. Her heart was beating very fast. The door opened completely. The metallic pod was attached to the other side. The inside of the pod was dark. Then a figure stepped out into the light of the hallway. It was a man. He looked like them. He had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. He was wearing a simple, dark gray uniform with no markings. He was not very tall. He had black hair and calm, dark eyes. He looked ordinary. This was the most frightening thing of all. The monster from the stories looked like a man. He stepped onto the Resolute and looked at Mira. He did not smile. He did not look angry. He just looked at her. Another person came out of the pod. A woman. She also wore a simple gray uniform. She had short brown hair and a serious face. She stood slightly behind the man, watching everything. The man looked around the hallway. His eyes moved over the walls, the lights, the ceiling. He was studying everything. He seemed to find it all very interesting. Finally, he looked at Mira again. He spoke. His voice was calm and clear. He used their language, but his words were simple and direct. "I am Sue," he said. He did not give a last name. He gestured to the woman behind him. "This is Hana," Mira swallowed. "I am Captain Mira of the United Earthship Resolute." She used the full formal name. It felt silly now. Sue nodded slowly. "You called." "We came." "Yes," Mira said. "Thank you for your help. You saved us." Sue looked at her as if she had said something strange. "The Ravagers were in our space. They were a problem. We fixed the problem." He made it sound so simple, like killing a swarm of deadly aliens was no different from fixing a broken machine. "Why are you here? On my ship?" Mira asked. Sue looked at her. "You called us. We have not heard from the outside in a long time. We came to see why. We came to see what you are now." He began to walk down the hallway away from the airlock. Hana followed him. They walked slowly, looking at everything. They looked at the control panels on the walls. They looked at the pictures of crew families taped to doors. Mira followed them. She felt like a guest on her own ship. Sue stopped and pointed at a light on the ceiling. "This is old technology." He was not being rude. He was just stating a fact. He turned to look at Mira. "Your ship is weak. Your people are weak. You called for help because you could not help yourselves." Mira felt a flash of anger. "We were fighting for our lives. The Ravagers are a powerful enemy." Sue considered this. "Yes, they are strong. You are weak. That is why you called us." He started walking again. "We will look at your ship. We will look at your people. Then we will decide." "Decide what?" Mira asked, her heart cold. Sue looked back at her. His dark eyes were impossible to read. "What to do with you?" Sue and Hana walked through the halls of the Resolute. They moved quietly. They did not speak to each other. They just looked. They looked at the walls, the doors, and the faces of the crew members they passed. The crew stood very still, pressed against the walls to let them pass. They looked at the 2 visitors with wide, frightened eyes. Captain Mira followed them. She felt like she was in a bad dream. She was the captain, but she had no control. These 2 people from the black ship were the ones in charge now. They were deciding the fate of her ship and her crew. Sue stopped at a door that led to one of the ship's gardens. It was a small room with plants and trees grown for fresh air. He looked inside for a long time. "You grow things," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Mira said. "It helps the crew." "It is good for their minds," Sue did not reply. He just looked at the green plants. His face showed no feeling. Then he turned and kept walking. They went down to the engineering deck. The room was a mess of wires and broken panels. The engineers were trying to fix the reactor. When Sue and Hana walked in, everyone stopped working. They became very still. Tay stood up from behind a console. He looked at the 2 visitors. He was not afraid. He was curious. Sue walked over to the main reactor control panel. He looked at the screens. He saw the damage reports. He saw the low power levels. "Your reactor is inefficient," Sue said to Tay. "You lose most of the energy as heat. You could make it 20 times more powerful with a better design." Tay's face turned red. He was proud of his engine room. "This reactor has kept this ship alive for 10 years. It is a good reactor." Sue looked at him. His eyes were calm. "It is a weak reactor. You are proud of weakness. That is a problem." Tay opened his mouth to argue, but Mira shook her head at him. He closed his mouth and looked down. Sue and Hana spent an hour walking through the ship. They saw the medical bay. They saw the sleeping quarters. They saw the room where the crew ate their meals. They saw everything. They did not seem angry or impressed. They were just collecting information. Finally, Sue stopped and turned to Mira. "We have seen enough. We will go back to our ship now." Mira's heart was pounding. "And then what? What will you do?" "We will decide," Sue said again. He and Hana walked back to the airlock. They stepped into their small metal pod. The door closed. A moment later, the pod detached and flew back to the black ship. The airlock on the Resolute closed automatically. Mira stood alone in the hallway. She felt exhausted. She took the elevator back to the bridge. The crew looked at her when she arrived. Their faces were full of questions. "Well?" Jin asked. "What did they say? What are they going to do?" "They did not say," Mira replied. She sat down in her chair. She felt very heavy. "They are deciding." The crew waited. The black ship sat silently beside them. Minutes felt like hours. No one spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the ship's system slowly coming back to life. Then, a signal appeared on Jin's panel. It was a simple, clean signal, not a data stream, not a complex message. It was one piece of information. "Captain," Jin said, his voice tense, "I am receiving a set of coordinates." "That is all. Just a location in space. Where does it lead?" Mira asked. Jin typed the numbers into the navigation computer. A star chart appeared on the main screen. A line drew itself from their current position to a point in a distant, empty part of the galaxy. The area around the coordinates was marked on the chart. The marking was a simple, universal symbol. It was a skull. "It is a forbidden zone," Jin whispered. "The charts say that area is not to be entered." "It is their space. Human space," Mira understood. It was not an invitation. It was a border. They were being shown a fence. They were being told where they did not belong. A moment later, a second signal came. This one was a video file. Jin put it on the main screen. Sue's face appeared. He was sitting in a plain room on the black ship. His expression was neutral. "People of the Resolute," he said, "we have made our decision." He paused as if choosing his words carefully. "You are weak. You depend on others. You ask for help. This makes you a problem for yourselves and a problem for us. Your technology is simple. Your ships are slow. You fight with noise and emotion. You are children playing with tools you do not understand. We could take your ship. We could study you. It would be easy, but you are not a threat. You are not interesting. You are just weak, so we will leave you. We will return to our space. You will return to yours. The coordinates we sent you are a border. Do not cross it. If you cross it, we will not talk. We will not send messages. We will destroy you. This is the only warning you will get. Tell your people. Tell the Galactic Coalition. The humans are not your friends. We are not your enemies. We are your neighbors, and we want you to stay on your side of the fence. Do not call us again. The next time you have a problem, solve it yourselves or die. It is not our concern." The screen went black. The bridge was completely silent. The message was clear. They were being spared. But it did not feel like a victory. It felt like they had been judged and found worthless. On the main screen, the black ship's engines glowed with a soft white light. It began to move away from the Resolute. It did not turn. It simply moved backward smoothly and silently. Then it turned and shot forward. It moved faster than anything they had ever seen. In a second, it was a small dot. In 2 seconds, it was gone. The space where it had been was empty. The battle was over. The Ravagers were gone. The humans were gone. The Resolute was safe. Mira let out a long, slow breath. She looked at her crew. They looked tired and confused. "Jin," she said, "send a message to the Coalition. Tell them the Ravagers have been defeated. Tell them. Tell them we are coming home." "And what about the humans?" Jin asked. "What do we tell them about the humans?" Mira looked at the empty space on the view screen. She thought about Sue's calm, cold eyes. She thought about the power of the black ship. "Tell them the stories are true," she said quietly. "Tell them we opened the old cage, and we looked inside, and the thing inside told us to go away." She turned to face her crew. "Tay, get our engines working. Let's go home." The Resolute turned slowly away from the planet Viridia. It moved toward the stars, heading back to the known galaxy. Behind them, the planet was safe. Ahead of them was home, but now everyone knew. The galaxy was a much bigger place, and in the dark, quiet corners of it lived neighbors who did not want to be friends. They had saved them, but they had not saved them out of kindness. They had done it to draw a line. The Battle of Viridia would be remembered as a great victory. But the people on the Resolute would always remember the truth. They had been saved by the one species everyone feared. And the price of that salvation was the knowledge that they were alone in a universe that did not care.